Hey everybody, my name is Kadira and welcome to Brain Girl Finance. On today's video, I'm going to tell you how I bought my house at 26 years old with no PMI and only 3.5% down. I wrote down some questions just to keep up with myself to make sure that I'm telling you everything that I experienced during this home buying process. But first things first, why did I want to buy a house? Well, I come from New York City. I come from an apartment living type of lifestyle. And so I felt really inspired to be the first in my family to buy a house. But furthermore, I really just wanted a lifestyle where I had more space. I had my daughter at 20 years old and I just felt like we were really confined in every single apartment that we've lived in. So the very first thing that I decided to do was join the NACA program. In about 2020, I joined it because I heard they can help you get a house. They work with people with low income. Long story short, that was an entire mess and I had to come up with a plan B. So in 2022, earlier this year, around early February, I decided that I was gonna go with a regular bank. And so I started doing some research on how regular banks work with people when they wanna buy a home. So I contacted the bank. I was put in touch with a mortgage loan officer. And this guy was really passionate. He pretty much was going through my income and he had to figure out my debt to income ratio. So if anyone wants to know if they can afford a house or what kind of house they can afford or how much house they can afford, you do need to figure out your debt to income ratio. Google debt to income ratio calculators, go find your calculator, boom, boom, boom. One thing you really need to know is how much more you're gonna have to pay that institution back for borrowing the money, which is considered an interest rate. And so knowing how interest works is really important. It took me a while to really figure this out, but what I did upon contacting banks was comparing the interest rates before they ran my credit. Because the bottom line is, I'm borrowing from you and I'm paying you to borrow money. And so before you run my stuff and you run my credit, I need to see if you're a great institution for me to borrow from in the first place. So what I honestly did was I called the banks and I said, what are your interest rates today? I did my best to do my research. And so what was the interest rate for, just regular banks? A lot of people will tell you other advice. A lot of people be like, go with a credit union. A lot of people be like, go with a mortgage company, which is like a third-party company, and that's all they do all day. I think everybody's, path to home ownership is different. For me, I went with a regular bank. But because I came from the NACA program, I specifically was looking for a bank with no PMI and low interest, or interest where I can buy down, and also what else? That was pretty much it. I really needed to feel like I realized that you can buy a house for $500,000 if the interest rate is 5%. Over a 30-year span, you're gonna be paying well over $1 million for that house. And it's just and I don't have the math in my head, but I'm just guessing, but it's about that and it doesn't seem right. But long story short, talking to this guy, he told me, listen, this is how much I could write you a pre-approval letter for. And he wrote up the letter and he gave it to me. Now, here's what a mortgage institution, bank, credit union, whatever you go with, they're all looking for the same thing. They're looking to see if you're the correct person to finance to. They're looking to see if you have income. They're looking to see if you are worthy of financing credit to, which is why they check your credit score. And they're just looking to see if you have the capital or the cash right now to pay for the upfront cost of the home and long-term cost of the home. Really, they don't give about the long-term cost. That's on you. They just want to make sure that you have money for the down payment, money for the closing costs, and money in a stable job to pay off this mortgage. And that's all they're looking for. The issue is you have to have a strategy. You have to know your strategy. And as I said, NACA didn't work for me, so my strategy was looking for banks that worked for me financially. You could buy a house with a credit score of 620 or higher. 620 is not hard to get to. And so the good thing about my situation is that my credit score was 800 when I was doing the home buying process. You don't have to have excellent credit, but what I will tell you is that when you're doing the home buying process, if you have late payments, if you have defaulted loans, or if you have any discrepancy on your credit file, it makes the process longer because you then have to prove to the bank that you are worthy of financing to. And that proof can just be done in many ways. You can write the bank a letter and say, listen, back in 2013, I was in college and I mismanaged money, but as you can see, I am managing money well now. You can write letters to banks and just tell them why you're credit worthy and why you should be financed and why they should finance you on this purchase or this asset purchase. But the bottom line is, when you have to do that for multiple accounts, it's going to be harder. Prior to buying a house, what you really want to do is just make sure that you have on-time payments and, you know, just a squeaky clean file, the squeakiest you can get it within the last 3 to 2 years. It is literally impossible to ask an institution to allow you to borrow money when the money that you've borrowed in the past have not been dealt with well. So the next step was to find a realtor and go house hunting. Most of the houses that I found were found on Zillow, Redfin, you know, realtor.com. When it comes to finding the home, that's a whole nother sport. You actually have to find the home and outbeat people and things of that sort. Once I found the house, I was pretty much good to go from there. As I mentioned, my income was not high whatsoever. I don't have any debt because I paid off my student loans, and I paid off my cars. So I don't have any debt, but my income wasn't high. So they do have programs where you can join and they will help you into homeownership because they're trying to look like a bank that's giving back. So I went to a bank who had this great product where you only had to do 3.5% down of the house, and there was no PMI, and there was a low to moderate income range where they would allow you to buy a house, and then you also can only buy in certain areas. And I really just want you all to know that, like, you don't need a lot of money. What you need to buy a house is your money has to make sense. Can you afford this asset on a monthly basis while also paying your other things? As long as that makes sense, you are ready for homeownership. Can you manage the debt you already have and manage this new lump sum of debt that you will get if you buy this house? As long as that makes sense, you are ready to buy a house. All right, so capital. Capital is the biggest part of this video because while you don't need a high income to buy a home, if you have money saved, capital money saved, it will help you a whole lot more. So you need to see that you have the money to front the closing and down payment costs. Down payment is really just the money you put down on the home. I really feel like they should get rid of it because it's really not enough to sustain a home loan of like 300 and change. Like the average home right now is about 363 in America. You know, down payments sometimes are like, most times for people like myself, are under 10%. So what is really $5,000 gonna do for a home that costs $360? Like, it's not doing much. Most people don't have $400 saved. As a financial coach, I know this. And so having $5,000 saved is hard. It's hard to do that. You also need to have that though. You need to have that up front. You do need to do some type of saving 2 to 3 years prior to buying a home, because you do need to have at least that amount in terms of down payment. Now, in terms of closing costs, this is where you also need capital. I personally bought down the interest rate on my house. So the interest rate for that day was about 3.6, and I bought it down to about 3.2. Now, we know that the interest rates right now are crazy, and so I'm really proud of that. And I paid about $6,000 to buy the interest rate down. So sometimes you may have that opportunity with the bank where they allow you to buy down your interest rate. I got it, like I said, I came into this trying to get the lowest, and that was the lowest that I can pay down because I had the capital. And so you really just want to have capital for down payments. You want to have capital for closing costs, such as possibly buying down interest. And then lastly, you need capital to pay for inspections, appraisals, your attorney. My attorney charged me $900. You need that, all goes into the closing. So I would say that having capital is really important just for those extra things. The realtors messed up the appointment for my appraiser. So he got upset and tacked on another $50. And so instead of paying him $540 for an appraisal, I had to pay $590 for something that wasn't even my fault. I honestly was able and gracious enough to save about $50,000 for this process. I just remember looking, and in total, I put down about $30,000 on this house. And that was from my bank account. And so, do you need that amount? I'm gonna say to comfortably buy in today's market, you do. And it's unfortunate because it wasn't like that years ago. It wasn't like that when, you know, other people were able to come in and buy homes in our communities. But unfortunately in this market, I feel like you do. Because had I not had the money, I would not be in this house. So I think though, it's doable to save when you're strict and you're serious. Let's say using every bit of income you can is important. Self-employment is hard. So if you have 2 jobs, that's better. But if you have 1 job and you have child support, that's great. If you have 1 job and you have alimony support, that's great. If you have 1 job and you're just earning high, that's also great. Ask the bank and they will do their best because they want this deal to happen. They want you to pay that interest. They want to make money off of you. It was a process, but I was able to do it in 30 days and close. So I'll end it there. Those are the 3 main factors. That's how I bought my home. I made sure that I had great credit. I made sure that I had good capital, and I made sure that I had good income. And not even good income, but consistent income. And that was enough to prove to the bank that we're willing to lend this woman some money. You know, she doesn't make the most, but every single loan that she's taken out since she has started has been paid on time and paid back in full. You know, this woman has saved with this little bit of income $50,000. Like, she's worthy of lending this money to. And that's what you really have to do. You have to shape your financials on paper to look like you're worthy. They don't know who you are, but you have to look like you're worthy. And it is possible to do even if you have a messed up financial history. Let me know any questions that I could possibly answer, because I do feel like it can go deeper than what I did in this video, but I want to keep it short and sweet and just give you the basics. So follow Bring Up Finance on Instagram, and that's it.